If you thought the Walt Disney Company and CEO Bob Iger were in a panic, you ain't seen nothing yet. Now, the head of the FCC coming in with the Trump administration is letting the nation know that Bob Iger and his network ABC are under the microscope indeed, telling them that the media, including their news organization, is not trusted by the American people. Is the network status of Disney's big channel now changing under Trump? Hello, folks, and welcome back to the channel that continues to bring you the truth in a way that you simply will not find anywhere else. Explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. It's what we do, and we hope that you're having a very festive end of year. We hope it was a wonderful Christmas. It is a happy Hanukkah, and a blessed new year is on the way. Folks, help us be blessed here by clicking that like button. We certainly would like it. All right, panel, let's get started. Let's go. Here we go. All right, folks, here's one that's going to be shaking up Disney and their cognitive dissonance, and that is that the Trump administration, incoming Trump administration, is already coming after Disney in a way that Disney has likely never dealt with before. An openly hostile president towards the company? Not even in the first term of Trump was he acting this way towards Disney. Brian Stelter, who would know something about being under fire from Trump because, well, he is all kinds of fire back at him. Brian Stelter, who we can neither endorse nor condemn, but we lean towards the latter, says, here's the full letter from incoming FCC chair Brendan Carr to Disney CEO Bob Iger about ABC's negotiations with affiliates and about trust in media writ large. Now, people have been saying, Disney's not really going to moderate. Disney's not going to really get out of politics. Folks, I'm here to tell you, I think the House of Mouse is scared. And this is why. I think they're actually facing an administration that is willing to come at them with the power of the presidency. I'm not here to say that's good or bad. I'm here to analyze it with the panelists here in a way that will let you know what's going on and keep you ahead of the culture curve. But we've got the head of the FCC coming in, Brendan Carr. Let's read what is said. And he is spitting fire on this paper. From the Federal Communications Commission on December 21st to Mr. Robert A. Iger, Chief Executive Officer of the Walt Disney Company. Regarding Disney ABC's ongoing negotiations with local broadcast TV stations. Dear Mr. Iger, says the government, Americans no longer trust the national news media to report fully, accurately, and fairly. Indeed, a recent Gallup survey showed that only 31% of Americans have a great deal or even a fair amount of trust in the mass media, which includes ABC. This is a historic low for your industry and represents a steady decline from a high of over 70%. Describing this freefall, Jeff Bezos, owner of another national news media outlet, The Washington Post, recently stated that, quote, our profession is now the least trusted of all. Something we are doing is clearly not working. ABC's own conduct has certainly contributed to the erosion in public trust. For instance, and this is called rubbing their nose in it, ABC News recently agreed to pay $15 million to President Trump's future presidential foundation and museum and an additional $1 million in attorney's fees to settle a defamation case. President Trump brought the case against ABC and its anchor, George Stephanopoulos, for statements Mr. Stephanopoulos made during a national ABC News interview. ABC has now appended a note to its original story in which ABC News and Mr. Stephanopoulos state that they now regret statements regarding President Donald J. Trump made during an interview by George Stephanopoulos. When we talk about trust in media, though, it is important to draw a distinction between national programming outlets like ABC and the many local broadcast TV stations that are working to serve their local communities. Indeed, Americans view those two types of media entities very differently. And essentially what this goes on to do is drive a wedge between Disney and its local affiliates, claiming that Disney has lost trust while the local businesses in the news still hold on to the views of the American people. This, I think, is a shot absolutely across the bow because we believe, and we've reported, that Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, may have settled with Trump to try to keep this thing from going to the Supreme Court. And now they're rubbing his nose in it. All right, we begin with culture. Culture, I ask you, what's your view of how Disney may handle a very irate Trump administration that already has a win under their belts, wind in their sails, and could be bringing hail, HAIL, to Bob Iger? I don't know. We would never get vulgar here, folks.
Well, I think they're going to have to. I think they're going to have to defer to the FCC in its direction. I think if they turn it adversarial, it'll bring the rest of the federal government upon them in their various efforts. You've got an awful lot of leverage, which I think is one of the reasons why we need Doge. But we have awful lot of departments that have a lot of leverage, administrative practices that can weigh down Disney across the board. The last thing they need is a state government that's scrutinizing them, and then add on top of it a federal government that's doing so. When it comes to media trust specifically, Disney doesn't have trustworthiness. In fact, the broader polls that I've covered since I started doing YouTube point that out. But Disney's one of the least trusted of the mass media out there, and that's
By the way, Coach, we're looking at Axios right now with Sarah Fisher as the author of it, 31% as of October in 2024. We don't have more recent out of Axios, but 31% trust the mainstream media. And Disney enjoys the keys to a network. And the government is intertwined because the government provides the network televisions with the airwaves, right? They provide them with the ability to use those airwaves. And so there's a requirement that they meet certain regulations and parameters to hold on to those network categories and classifications. And so this is what the government is saying, is that Disney, you're supposed to be providing news as part of your network status, and instead people don't trust you. They don't think it's news anymore. And that has to put a real fear in the House of Mouse, because for all that they malign linear broadcast, if they lost linear broadcast, it would be a huge hit to the company and the stock.
There's something I want to throw in here. In the coming years, it's very possible that these affiliates will all be snatched up by the larger entities that hold their names right now. Disney does own some affiliates, but you look at these smaller stations here that are trusted. If they get fully absorbed into those larger entities, this is going to be something that there's going to be a lot of merger and acquisition activity this year, whether that means that they'll actually happen or whether there'll be legislation to stop mergers and acquisitions. M&A is going to be a big deal in 2025, maybe in 2026 as well.
And yes, but Jonas, I'm not sure if you agree, but we've seen a recent shift in the way that the quote unquote Republicans, which I think we're going to have to come up with a new name for, because it seemed to be a different group of humans gathering together under that banner. But I'm curious if you believe that the Republicans, as they're currently constructed as of this moment in time, will be less likely to be friendly to mergers and acquisitions. I think they're more likely to push back on, for example, the acquisition of U.S. Steel, and perhaps the other things that are happening, like a Honda and Nissan merger here in the United States, which are obviously going to try to pull off in Japan, and so on and so forth. Do you think that likely we're going to see a pushback and a more of an era where we're breaking up monopolies and things that have been done unjustly in the future?
The thing that I'm seeing, and I don't want to go too far off topic here.
Sure.
I've seen some rumblings that maybe Sony is preparing for a change of ownership. That is a so far down, and I've seen one move that makes me go, maybe this is what they're planning on doing. And then Comcast is obviously spinning off a bunch of cable networks into a different entity. Why are they doing that? If they are prepping to sell those or purchase something else or start merging things around, because Warner Brothers has been prepping to be bought out ever since David Zaslav, since they did the Reverse Morris Trust to spin off Warner Brothers Discovery from Warner Media here. So there's a lot of gravity that we're just waiting for this support to move and that to happen. And there are so many things that are ready to happen for the right economic environment. And I have a feeling that the changes that we're about to see come January 20th, that might be the economic environment we're looking at. So for the FCC to say, hey, Disney, we have this issue with you, at least they're being honest about it.
Well, I know a lot of people are expecting that, Jonas, but to Culture's point, I think this is a different Trump administration than maybe we had seen during his first term. I know there's a lot of articles out there. I think CNBC had one of them and a couple of others that are expecting these mergers, acquisitions to take place, really responding to the first term and what was allowed to happen there. But I gotta have to agree with Culture. I'm not quite sure that's necessarily going to happen. Carr concludes the letter that he wrote here by saying they are monitoring the outcome of the ABC negotiations to ensure that those negotiations enable local broadcast TV stations to meet their federal obligations and serve the needs of their local communities.
Yes.
That's pretty big as well. A lot of regulatory,
control,
pressure
interference,
coming
pressure.
here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right, Vash. Yeah.
The gavel is strong this time, and they're really. I think these dogs will bite. That's what I would recommend to Bob Iger to recognize about this incoming administration. And so, when it comes to Disney, what they should do everything in their power to not do what they've been doing for about the last 12 years. That would be a good idea. Ron, your thoughts on it?
My thoughts are, and I don't know if anybody would agree with me, but actually, if Bob Iger complies, if he goes along with what they want, I mean, first of all, we know that ABC, Bob Iger himself, Dana Walden especially, not fans of Trump. They really tried to derail his campaign during his debate. They fact checked him on everything during the debate. They didn't fact check Kamala, but here's the thing. It's actually good for ABC and good for Disney to comply because they are, they've been losing audience over the last, especially over the last 5 years, but definitely over the last 10, 12, 15 years. I'm looking at a poll on Yahoo that says that 68% of Americans say that they're less likely to do business with Disney. And that is over, the certain type of content that they've been producing. That's a lot of Americans that don't trust this company anymore because of what they have been putting out. So it's a little bit odd, but actually what the administration is doing to Disney, if Disney complies, it would actually, I think, help the company out overall. Because if you become more trustworthy with your audience, if you start producing the content that the company used to produce a long time ago, it really changes the whole media landscape, especially when we know that competition is rougher than it's ever been because we have creators like ourselves, YouTube, everybody out there. There are a lot of places to put your eyeballs if you're anywhere in the world as far as media and news and all, entertainment in general. So, if you lose audience trust, you're going to lose audience. And if you can gain audience trust back, you're going to gain audience over time. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Just consider that the scrutiny doesn't just stop with the FCC. This is just the opening salvo, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's one of the reasons why I did the video I did earlier today and talk about this specific issue. There are more. Disney has made themselves the target of a lot of regulatory agencies under the new administration. They're going to be looking at them for their hiring practices. They're going to be looking at them for many of the other things, lines that they've crossed over the course of the last, let's say, half a decade to maybe full decade at this point in time. So, having the FCC fire the opening salvo lets Disney know that they need to clean up not just that, but pretty much everything else that they've been doing. I can't imagine that they won't be subjected to multiple federal court cases after the DOJ gets involved in investigating some of their monetary practices, some of perhaps you see the SEC take a quick look at Disney, as far as their presentation of their financials and things like that. I can't imagine we won't see further scrutiny, and Disney will just be the beginning. Disney just happens to be the biggest name, right? 40% of all entertainment in the United States. So that's where you're going to go. And then, you're going to go after them from a lot of other regulatory respects as well. So like you said, I think this is going to be bad, but I think you're 100% right. It'll help Disney in the long run because they've pushed out the demographic that they absolutely need for the future. They pushed out the people that are going to have children in the future. I had a conversation about this at a recent event I was at with several different people, and everybody's of the same mind. People have literally walked away from the Disney company because of how they present issues, whether it be completely factually based or not, and even when it comes to news. So they've pushed a lot of people away. The only way to get those people back is to show your colors as being truthful and presenting factual information. And with shows like The View, which is something we've all talked about, especially Pro and Jonas of late, and I think Vash as well. That is really a talk show. It is not. It's presented as a news program, a factual program, which is strange. But despite the fact that they have lawyers on the floor now for that show specifically, making them do these notes tells you something. And again, another reason the FCC is probably taking a look at this, and also the affiliates that Vash was talking about, because The View isn't broadcast from Disney directly; it comes through all these different affiliates.
But it is filmed at the Robert A. Iger building.
Oh my goodness!
And as we get ready to wrap this conversation, I just want to say too, this is going to be my advice to politicians who have a vested interest in the future benefits of the country and the future healthiness of the United States. We have, millions and millions of people who listen to this show every month. And I just want to take this opportunity, the very rare time that I speak directly to people who might be listening. I want to put this bug in your ear, and that is that you have the ability over the next 2 years, perhaps, to ensure that should the power shift back in other directions, that there are protections in place to keep the new media safe. This new media coming from X and YouTube and the Green Machine, this new, this new power that you've sent out throughout the fruited plains of the United States to independent content creators all over our beautiful country. You need to make sure that you put some sort of protection in so that this continues to blossom and grow. Because my worry is that should power go back the other way, and I'm not trying to be political, but I am trying to play within the reality that we are, I don't think that on a particular side of the political aisle that Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly and PBD and Timcast and the Young Turks and All in One Podcast, and I can keep going, this channel, Nerdrotic, Flash, Geeks and Gamers, Valiant Renegade, Culture Casino, I can keep going. I don't think that what we're doing is appreciated. And I think that there will be a backlash and a crackdown attempt to get the gatekeepers back, to put up the wall again and make sure that the new media is not able to do what we're doing. And I think that what we're doing is a very important thing to society. I think it's the return of free discourse to a digital town square. It is such fun getting to spend time together, folks, but we have come to the end of yet another video. Well, that makes the mainstream scratch their heads, pull their hair out, and wonder, how is it we continue to do what we do? But you know what we do this for? It's for you. To keep bringing all the knowledge of entertainment, explaining what's going on in Hollyweird each and every day. And you can help us continue on that way by clicking the like button. Share, subscribe, click it, stick it to those algorithms. It's the notification bell. Share this out on your favorite social media platforms, and we would love to have you drop a comment right on down below. Share your thoughts because, well, your thoughts truly do matter, and we mean it. As we get ready to say goodbye, we end with the common refrain. Folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.